By early 2011, the X-Men franchise was in very deep water. Following the disappointing box office returns of X-Men The Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine, many fans at the time wondered if the X-Men films has pretty much lost their way in a tunnel. And then, by the summer of 2011, a fresh start came that nobody was quite expecting. An all-new cast showed up, a new director, and a story that went back into the beginning, how like all this began, and what led to the different mutant factions that we would see in the past X-Men movies. A movie that would definitely change audiences' perspective forever for this franchise. What's going on, everybody? My name is Nate, and on this 46th episode of The Road to Avengers Doomsday, we're taking a look at X-Men First Class, the film that revitalized the X-Men franchise and introduced a brand new generation of mutants. And I'm really excited to break down this movie and share you guys my thoughts on the films. So, without further ado, let's get started and let's deep dive into X-Men First Class. Now, as I previously told you guys, the X-Men franchise needed a whole new life. Instead of continuing the existing storyline, the filmmakers decided to go backwards. Way backwards. This film would tell the origins of Professor X, Magneto, the X-Men, and also the Brotherhood of Mutants, and show how these once two mutants were once good friends, later became enemies of each other and leading different factions of mutants. It was a pretty risky idea of what the filmmakers were able to do for this movie, but thankfully, it was a really good payoff. This film is directed by none other than Matthew Vaughn. Now, he would later do like the Kingsman movies, but this is where he got into like the style, the action, and the setting. Vaughn approached the material differently than the previous X-Men movies. Instead of focusing on a superhero action, he leaned into character drama, spy thriller elements, and the cold world politics. The result feels unique. Part superhero movie, part James Bond adventure, part historical thriller. And honestly, it worked pretty brilliantly, and he would incorporate this in the Kingsman franchise. Gotta give credit to that. So, one of the biggest challenges that X-Men First Class faced was casting younger versions of iconic characters. And thankfully for this actor, they have picked a pretty good actor for Professor X, and that's James McAvoy. While the actor did try to intimidate Patrick Stewart's elderly tone, McAvoy instead created his own version of the character. This Charles is charming, optimistic, and confident. He generally believes humans and mutants can coexist peacefully. I gotta give credit to how James McAvoy does for his Charles Xavier. We get to see a young Professor X, how he just lives in a world of mutants, as he himself is a telepathic mutant. And then we have Michael Fassbender as Eric Lehnsherr, the future Magneto. And honestly, he may be one of my favorite performances in the entire movie. Eric's story begins with tragedy. After surviving a concentration camp during World War II, he dedicates his life hunting down the man responsible for unaliving his mom when he was a kid. Fassbender brings intensity, pain, and determination in every scene. You understand why Eric becomes Magneto, even when you don't agree with his choices. Now, the emotional core of First Class is the friendship between Charles and Eric. The two men want the same thing, a better future for mutants. The only problem is that they completely disagree on how to achieve it. Charles believes in peace, Eric believes in strength. Watching their friendship slowly break apart from start to finish is really heartbreaking, because we all know how it ends, and the movie does an excellent job building up to that tragedy. And something later that prequel films to franchises would do, like for example, Transformers 1, it would focus on the friendship between Optimus Prime and Megatron. That works pretty well. Anywho, the main villain of the movie is Sebastian Shaw, played by legendary actor Kevin Bacon. Now, Shaw wants to provoke nuclear war and allow mutants to inherit the Earth. Bacon clearly enjoys playing the role. He's charismatic, dangerous, and a believable threat. And most importantly, he connects directly to Eric's tragic past, making the conflict feel very personal. And I gotta tell you guys, the rest of the supporting cast, it was pretty fantastic. First off, we got Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. This film gives Mystique far more depth than the previous movies. Her struggle of identity becomes the story's most important themes. Then there's Nicholas Hoult as Beast, which is a great casting, by the way. He brings the intelligence and humility to Hank McCoy. His transformation to Beast is one of the film's most emotional moments. I gotta appreciate the prosthetics and the makeup they did for Beast. Very accurate in my opinion. And also there's Rose Byrne as Moria McTaggart. Moria serves an important bridge between humans and mutants throughout the entire story. And I gotta appreciate how Fox went out for this movie. And the coolest thing about X-Men First Class is how it incorporates into real history. The film takes place during the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis, which makes the story feel larger than life than being grounded in recognizable events. It's a clever way to blend fiction and history, and I really do appreciate how they went all out for this. So, why do I think X-Men First Class is great? Well, personally, I think it's really great. It focuses on the character first. The action is great, the visual effects are pretty solid, but the relationships are what matter most. Charles and Eric and Shaw, Mystique's search for acceptance, and all these storylines work. The film reminds us that the X-Men have always been the best when they're dealing with human stories through mutant characters. Today, the X-Men are becoming increasingly more important to Marvel's future. With mutants now entering the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with thanks to the recent Doctor Strange and Deadpool Wolverine, it feels like Marvel really knows how to bring these mutants in. And X-Men First Class helped redefine what the X-Men could be. And many of the characters introduced would go on to have major roles in the next 3 X-Men movies, which I'll review in future videos on this channel. But in conclusion, X-Men First Class saved the entire franchise. Matthew Vaughn delivered a fresh new vision that I didn't think it would be possible. James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender created one of the best rivalries in superhero movie history. And the film reminded audiences why the X-Men are such beloved characters. It's smart, emotional, and exciting. And in my opinion, one of the strongest X-Men movies ever made. And personally, it's my dad's favorite X-Men movie. But anyways, if you enjoyed this episode of Nate Reviews, make sure to give a like, subscribe, and follow my channel so you keep up with more episodes weekly of The Road to Avengers Doomsday. And let me know down in the comments below, do you prefer James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender's versions of Professor X and Magneto, or the other latter two of Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen? But anyways, that's all I gotta say. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.